What's up, everybody? My name is Ben. Here today we're going to talk a little bit about the USMNT. Thank you for joining me. This is my first video that I've had so far on this channel, so we're going to mainly talk about the senior squad throughout the videos that we have here, but we're also going to talk a little bit about coaching, about prospects, and anything that has to do with big news dealing with the USMNT. For my first video here, I have to give a big shout out to Filippo at Tactical Manager and for Pete at 11 Yanks. You know, these guys not only were my inspiration to kind of get into the content creating for USMNT, but they were also the inspiration for this first video that I have today. So before we get into it too much, go ahead, look them up on Twitter. You know, like I said, 11 Yanks, Tactical Manager, both great follows, both great content creators here on YouTube. And so that gets into this first video where I'm actually going to talk about our projected 23-man roster that's going to go to Qatar. Now, this is my opinion, of course, of who not do I think would be on the team tomorrow if we had to select the team, but who's going to progress over the next 10, 11 months before this roster has to be named, and who will ultimately end up being part of our 23-man roster that will go to Qatar. Now, as we all know, 2020 and 2021 have been extremely unpredictable, and who knows what's going to happen over the next 11 months before we actually end up going to Qatar. So with that being said, it is likely that FIFA will implement some sort of new rules that might allow 25 players to go rather than 23. So that's what I think would be fair, is 25. That way you can have 22 field players and likely 3 goalies. But who knows? For this video, we're just going to stick to the regular 23-man. Now, if you guys like my choices as I go through this 23-man roster, go ahead and hit like, hit subscribe if you will, so we can help try and build a nice community here to be able to talk about all things USMNT, continue to grow, continue to have fun with it. It'll keep it more exciting on my end also. And of course, I will be looking at all the comments that come through on this video. So if you agree, disagree with what I have to say, go ahead, drop a comment in there. Let me know of a player or players that you would like to see on this roster that I haven't included, and maybe take some players off of my roster that I put on here, but make sure you let me know why. Don't just throw names out there. I want to hear what your opinions are. I want to be able to gauge with the community here and see what type of content, who are the players we need to focus on, and everything that goes along with it. All right, guys, so for our goalkeepers here, we have Zach Steffen with Manchester City, Matt Turner, New England Revolution, and Gaga Slonina with the Chicago Fire. Gaga might be considered a surprise by some people, but the truth is that the third goalkeeper is largely irrelevant when it comes to the World Cup. Most people believe you want to bring in an older vet with experience, but we really don't have one of those that's still playing at a high enough level to be valuable enough to bring. Gaga would only be 18 at the time of the World Cup and is currently the most valuable goalkeeper in the world at his age. Now, a couple guys that just miss out on this are going to be Ethan Horvath and Sean Johnson. Ethan Horvath, unfortunately, picked the wrong club this year, and it's tough for him to get minutes right now. And nothing, honestly, against Sean Johnson. He's just beat out by these other 3 that we have. Now, in looking at our outside backs, obviously we have Serginho Dest with Barcelona, DeAndre Yedlin with Galatasaray, Anthony Robinson with Fulham, and I put Joe Scallion with Borussia Mönchengladbach. There's no real surprises here in my opinion. Even though Joe Scally hasn't made an appearance for the first team squad yet, he did get called into the last camp to be around the guys and to help build that chemistry. I'm also a big believer in player versatility, and along with Dest, Joe Scally can play both right back and left back at a high level. You see him do that week in and week out with Borussia Mönchengladbach, and I don't see, when it comes to December, there be any reason why he would not be able to do the same with the USMNT. Now, it was tough for me to leave guys like Jonathan Gomez and George Bello out. I know Greg is a big George Bello fan. I don't really rate him that much or that highly as a left back. He is a quality player, though. He is young. There is still room for him to grow. I just don't see him making it to Qatar. Jonathan Gomez is a guy that I really wanted to put into this lineup. It's just tough being such a young player moving to, a second division squad after playing in the USL. So hopefully, 4 or 5 years down the road, he will be able to cut into this 23-man roster. But right now, unfortunately for me, he's just on the outside. For center backs, I have included Miles Robinson with Atlanta United, Chris Richards with Hoffenheim, John Brooks with Wolfsburg, and Cameron Carter-Vickers with Celtic. Center back for me is a position that's still up in the air, and Robinson and Richards are the only 2 that I consider to be locks right now. Brooks has been dropped recently,
but he's been our best and most reliable center back for several years, so it's hard for me to leave him out of this roster. It also looks like he's going to stay at Wolfsburg, so it's, again, another reason why it's tough to leave a guy out who's consistently been one of our best players for several years now when he's going to be continuing to play in the Bundesliga. And don't forget to mention he does still have World Cup experience playing in 2014. Now, Cameron Carter-Vickers, right now, I see him projecting as my fourth center back. He's arguably been the best center back in the Scottish Premiership this past year, and he's still owned by Tottenham. He's only 24 years old. Could he start at Tottenham? Probably not. But a lower level Premier League side or a good championship side, I think he could still excel. And European experience at center back is important for World Cups. Two guys that I think are very close to making this roster, and I know are two of Greg's favorites, are Aaron Long and Walker Zimmerman. Aaron Long, unfortunately, he suffered that Achilles injury last year, which has really limited him in what he's been able to do with the U.S. national team. But you do see that Greg called him in before he was really fit. He's been in the last couple camps. So obviously a guy that Greg's liked. Now, Walker Zimmerman kind of came out of nowhere the last few months. He wasn't called into a couple camps, and then when he did come in and get called in by Greg, he started, he captained a couple games. He played very well. This is a guy that I could see ending up going to Qatar, both of these guys actually, but I feel like with the talent that we have that's playing right now in Europe at higher levels, I think that'll benefit us more when we're going to a global competition like this. Midfielders that I would personally include right now are Gio Reyna of Borussia Dortmund, Weston McKennie, Juventus, Tyler Adams with RB Leipzig, Yunus Munsa with Valencia, Gianluca Busio with Venezia, and Kellen Acosta with Colorado Rapids. It's clear to me and everybody else that MMA, McKinney, Musa, and Adams is currently our number one midfield right now. Where this gets interesting to me is Gio Reyna. Greg still sees him as a winger, but he was playing centrally for Borussia Dortmund before he got injured, and he was doing so quite well. I don't think that you can go wrong with either two of Musa, McKinney, and Reyna as our dual eights, with Tyler Adams sitting there as our number 6. Now, Gianluca Busio will have another year at this time playing in Italy, and if he keeps progressing like he has the last few months, I don't know how you can keep him off. For me, Kellen Acosta is the guy that's still likely our backup 6, but he's on thin ice. At this point, I'm not sure if there is enough games for someone to replace him and gain Greg's trust. Now, for me, two guys that I think are very close, Tanner Tessman with Venezia and Aiden Morris with Columbus Crew. Tanner Tessman I still see as a little bit more of a project, but him getting that move while he's young to Venezia and seeing time is only going to help him. Probably not for Qatar, but for years down the road, this kid could develop into one of our better midfielders that we have. For me, seeing Aiden Morris progress the way that he did 2 years ago before he tore his ACL, if he would have stayed healthy, I would genuinely believe that he would be contesting Kellen Acosta right now for our backup 6 role. Unfortunately, he did suffer that injury, but hopefully he will be able to put in some good time this year with the Columbus Crew and at least get back on Greg's radar. For our wingers, I have Christian Pulisic with Chelsea, Tim Weah with Lille, Brendan Aronson with RB Salzburg, and Jordan Morris with the Seattle Sounders. I think Jordan Morris might be the one that people disagree with, but this is a guy that Greg really seems to trust, and if he can have a healthy 11 months heading into Qatar, I wouldn't be too surprised to see him. I see him and Paul Arriola are kind of guys that Greg looks at as people he can trust and rely on. So either one of them two I could see taking up that 4th spot. I just don't rate Paul Arriola. Guys that I see as just being left out are going to be Matthew Hoppe and Conrad de la Fuente. Matthew Hoppe, unfortunately, his club, he was injured. He wasn't able to see as much time as we all thought that he was going to when he went into it. And Conrad de la Fuente, yes, he has had good minutes. Yes, he is a electric player, can create a lot of chances. I still think he's got a little bit more growing that he can do. Either one of these two could find their way making onto the roster, and I would not be upset with that. All right, now we have our strikers. So the two guys that I see going are Ricardo Pepi with Augsburg and Daryl Dike with West Brom. Now, maybe a little bit prisoner of the moment with both of them just getting their big transfers, but I genuinely believe that these two guys could represent us very well going to a World Cup. In regards to Ricardo Pepi, I feel like he's a lock, as nothing major, no injuries, nothing like that slows him down over the next few months. In my opinion, he could score 2 goals for us, or he could score 12 goals for Augsburg, and he's going to Qatar. Now, the backup is still a bit up in the air. I've got to go with DK. Even if West Brom doesn't get promoted to the Premier League, he's still going to get a ton of game time, and we all know how he looked last year when he played in the Championship. Daryl DK also gives you a little bit something different than Ricardo Pepi, so making a sub late game, we're not doing anything like for like, and Daryl DK is a big physical body that you'd be able to throw in there if we need a goal late to try and get a draw or a late win somewhere down the line. Now, guys that I see just on the edge out are Josh Sargent for obvious reasons. He, had the transfer to Norwich City. That's not going very well. He is a guy that he's still young enough, and he still does have the talent to potentially make this team. I still see that as a long shot right now. Jordan Pefalk with Young Boys. He's a guy that he's been playing well. He has Champions League minutes. And Giassi Zardes with Columbus Crew is another one of Greg's favorites. Seems like Giassi's the guy that comes in and he just works hard, and Greg values that more than almost anything out of these guys.
All right, guys, that's my 23-man roster right there for you, with a couple people that I think could end up breaking their way into the 23-man before we go to Qatar. Now, we do have to keep in mind that there may be guys that emerge over the next few months that can break their way in. For me specifically, I knew of the guys, Ricardo Pepi, Joe Scally. I knew they were young and talented. Did I expect to include them in my 23-man roster right now? No. But there will be more guys, like I said, over the next, 4 or 5 months. Maybe guys like Caden Clark, who unfortunately his transfer didn't really work out the way that we wanted it to. But guys like Paxton Aronson, Aiden Morris, some of these young kids are going to come out and they're going to put on a show. They're going to impress. And we could very well end up seeing a guy or two like that work their way onto this roster. Now, if you liked the video that I had today, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Let's see if we can continue to grow and build a community here that'll actually be a ton of fun, to interact with and spend time with you guys as we post these videos as often as we can. Also, if you agree or disagree with any of my projections or anybody that you have, go ahead, throw their names down in the comments here. Also, remember, explain to me why. But for now, we're going to go ahead and log off for this one. Thanks, guys. We'll see ya.